What's up, you guys? Sean Ross Sapp, Fightful.com, here with a name you know. We've interviewed him, but it's been years. Years have passed, and so much has changed. And now we're talking MLW Kings of Colosseum, Wednesday, 7 p.m. It's streaming on their YouTube. It'll be streaming on Fightful.com. We'll have it embedded. We'll have coverage and discussion of the show. But we got Court Bauer here. Court, how you doing?
Hey, Happy New Year.
Happy New Year to you, too. And as I was saying off the air, big week, really good card. I cannot wait for Myron Reed and Leo Rush. That is a match that as soon as I saw that it was set, I was like, all right, that's fantastic. Jordan Oliver, who I interviewed recently, against Simon Gotch, Von Erichs and the Dirty Blondes, and then you got Hammerstone and Mads Kruger. This is a big show for you guys.
You know, in this time, in this moment, to try to create tent poles to build stuff to, even though you have no crowds and stuff, you know, it's kind of important to not make the product feel like it's Groundhogs Day. We were talking about that just before we jumped on. And, you know, Kings of Colosseum is an event we originally had mapped out for, you know, a version of this last summer. And, you know, the whole world changed and everything kind of vacillated on a schedule from a matchmaker point of view forward until you're able to film again. But with Leo Rush, guys like Myron Reed, I would say that's, you know, not exactly brilliant booking. It's kind of lazy booking because it's such a great, easy match to make, but it's such an obvious good one. And there's no bigger debut when I was looking at it from just a matchmaking point of view and promotional point of view than having Leo Rush debut challenging for the world title.
Yeah, a fantastic card for Kings of Colosseum. You had mentioned that you had it kind of planned for last summer. Was that supposed to be like a summer tradition? Because I remember the first one that you all did was in July of 2019.
Yeah, so we were looking at it being kind of an August event. Battle Riot was going to be July, and originally the plan for that was to be in Philly, and that was going to be a pay-per-view. Then it changed. We were still hopeful we were going to do it as we were closing our deal with DAZN, and it was going to be the first live special on DAZN. And then, you know, just everything vacillates. And when you have, you know, I try to map out my booking, you know, at least 12, 18 months. Some stuff I have even 24 months out. That's kind of like pie in the sky, but you hope you get there and things are on that path. But, you know, I couldn't even see 45 days out at a certain point in 2020. And then you realize, you know, there's not much changing 90 days out, 120 days out. So you're kind of in this quasi hibernation until you feel comfortable going back out there and filming again. But it was you at this point haven't been in the business since I was about 18. You think you've seen it all, and you always say you got to keep learning, kind of keep, you know, adjusting and seeing what's new out there. There's nothing like what's happened in the last year. There's nothing to compare it to and how to proceed. You just try to use common sense and do the best you can. But it's been an unfathomable year.
Are you familiar with your reputation as the wrestler whisperer among online circles?
Do I have a soft voice?
Well, no.
I've
Okay.
heard a little bit of it.
Yeah. I mean, Leo Rush.
Is it like the Seinfeld thing, the whisperer talker?
Yeah, I mean, Leo Rush, upon leaving WWE, had a certain reputation. I can tell you in my experiences with him, he's been great. He's awesome. He's really ambitious.
Yeah.
He's an entrepreneur. He does a lot of great things. But there have been some people that have come into MLW that maybe didn't have the best reputation, and we have seen them have outstanding MLW careers and seem very easy to work with and very good to work with. And without naming names, there have been a lot. Like, I could probably name a half a dozen off the top of my head. Do you find that you have a knack for that type of thing? Because, I mean, it's a proven formula for these people. It gets them, like, if maybe, I don't want to say they've lost a chance or something, but they've got this preconceived notion, and MLW has been a really good way to turn that around.
You know, I learned early on that sometimes difficult guys have that reputation because they're passionate, and you have to understand the way they're wired, understand what's the source of that passion, or that creates conflict or creates the problems or complications. And a lot of them really do have that passion, or they live by a code, and you have to just understand that and decode it and understand and interpret what they're trying to express. And some guys are very verbose and will tell you exactly what they're upset over or their concerns. Just try to treat everyone with a level of respect and dignity. And on top of that, kind of just figure out their perspective on things. I would say probably the best thing I had that helped me understand this was my mentor, Gary Hart. I don't know how many times I'm going to mention his name on this, so if you're drinking, you might be able to take a shot now. But Gary, had a reputation for dealing with a lot of the same kind of problem children, whether it was Mark Lewin, who had some dicey experiences with promoters, or the Freebirds, their story about how they were signed to WWF and Andre the Giant fired them. He had his hands full of problem children. And so you just have to kind of learn as a matchmaker and booker how to engage those guys and realize you both got to get something out of this. You got to have this positive outcome of this, or what are we doing here? And just try to make it the most enriching experience, so that by the end of that tour of duty, whether it's an end of a contract or 4 bookings that you've committed to, the outcome is the fans get a satisfied ending. The promotion is elevated as a result of your contributions, and that your presence is not diminished, but further enhanced, and you have more momentum and energy and more awareness and interest in you than you did coming in. And I really hope for most of our guys, if not all of our guys that have gone through the system, that is what they experience by the time they exit, be it Davey Boy Smith Jr., who came into us having kind of, I think, just exited New Japan, or in the midst of exiting New Japan, and had a career crossroads, to now being a free agent. I think he's going to have a lot of options out there. And guys like that, you want people to have added interest. And I think, look, Fatu, Hammerstone and they're studs. Everyone says, "Oh, I'd love to see that guy in this company or that company." They all tried out for them, or they were on the radar, or they were engaged, but they ultimately didn't sign them. They didn't see what I saw, or whatever happened there, and they're thriving here. And that's why those kind of guys, when we engaged them in June or so and said, "Hey, you want to talk? We're in hibernation, but we'd love to talk to you about new deals, offer you more years and also more money, and up your pay significantly. How about it?" We batted 1,000, which is very difficult to do with so much competition out there. But they believe in the system. The system got them far, and they're thriving in the system. And that was that blew me away. I didn't expect that.
I was going to ask how you even approach that type of thing in a pandemic, especially when you guys were sort of sidelined. Like, how does a company that in these unprecedented times even approach the idea of, well, okay, we're going to offer you new contracts, we're going to give you raises, they're going to be a significant amount of time, and knowing that these people, Hammerstone and Jacob Fatu, probably are going to have interest from a whole lot of companies in the meantime?
Yeah, we asked them, and there was no hesitation. They wanted to double down on their time in MLW, and so that in itself was, I was humbled by it, because you have so many. These are truly talented guys, but they also see that, and you see it every day in every company. No company is immune to it. All of us, there's the guy that goes somewhere and wow, he just kind of stalled out. And remember, these guys have had experiences elsewhere, or they were blown off when they inquired about a company and if they were in a hiring spree. And so that resonates, that motivates these guys to then shove it up their ass. And they've selected us as that vessel to do it. And I couldn't, maybe it's the right place at the right time, but we're fortunate with that.
We mentioned Kings of Colosseum, obviously. With that show airing this week, was that a concentrated effort? Because there's a lot of stuff going on this week, and obviously,
No.
I mean, it's a crazy week right now.
So 2 things. No, I mapped this out in September. I had no way of knowing that the first week of January, with the way I lined out and booked out my TV when we taped, that this would be the magical week where everyone's just like, yeah, let's just put our flag up and do something crazy this week. But that's wrestling. And then everyone thinks you're all conspiring to outdo the other. I can't speak for the other parties. I can just say no, because that would not be ideal because there's just all this conversation about everything, and you can say maybe it heats up everything, and maybe it does. But also, it's now trying to elbow yourself into the conversation, so it's not ideal. And the same thing goes for like us being on Wednesday nights. So we moved to Wednesday because we really wanted to be during the week. And BN has us on Saturdays, and they have that exclusive window as a network. And we had a streaming right to do something else somewhere else any time of the week. And Fubo came to us. They're backed by Viacom. They're backed by Walt Disney Company, a lot of big players in the entertainment sector. And we closed the deal over the summer, and they became a new streaming partner for us. And their idea is to put us in prime time during the week. We're like, this is great. And I'm like, let's do Thursday. This, please not Monday, please not Wednesday. And they're like, let's do Wednesday. And originally it was like 8 o'clock. I was like, can we move that like an hour earlier at least? And I want to be a good partner. So they finally said, okay, we'll give you something. And they moved us to 7, and then we have a replay at 10 on Fubo. So that's why we moved to Wednesdays. And I think it's important to be out. We see more energy and chatter about the company on a weekday than like on a Saturday.
Sure.
I think just, there's more people in front of a TV and especially right now. But
especially for wrestling, there's so much wrestling throughout the middle of the week. I think people are conditioned to talk about it during the week unless like there's a big weekend pay-per-view or something.
Yeah, I mean, the only thing that we do benefit from is like on BN, they have a big soccer match. That's our lead-in, so we'll get this huge tidal wave of viewers coming off of that. They'll stick with us, especially if we have Mexican talent on the show. But then they see one of their stars from the homeland, so that will benefit us. But in general, we're seeing a lot more energy and a lot more conversation about the product because we've moved to prime time now. If I can only get them to move us to Thursdays, we'll be good to go.
Is that something that you're even able to plan for, like the lead-in, like when you're creating this stuff and you schedule anything or you set up the show? Are you looking even at a specific schedule and saying we might have a good lead-in here? It might be better to lead with this match, this person that an outside audience might connect with.
Sometimes, during normal times, we've had that, especially with live specials. And so we'll hear, I think we had a show in Chicago, and I think it was with, maybe Rose Parks or maybe it was Lucha Brothers that far back. And it was the lead-in was Barcelona versus Madrid from BN. I'm like, oh my God, well, this is we got to do this. And it was cool. They're so supportive and such a great partner for us that, they had, at their halftime, I think that's what they call in soccer, at their halftime, they did a satellite uplink from our building in Chicago and interviewed not the Luchadors, but Tom Lawler. I don't know why that happened, but that's what happened. Tom was, he's never going to be shy in front of a mic, but they do great integration of their programs and trying to kind of spread it around so there's awareness. Like when we first started BN, we were on Friday nights, and we were supposed to benefit from Roy Jones Jr. boxing and their MMA programming from, I think, Canada. And we actually outperformed both those shows, so much so that they moved us to Saturdays, which and that's why they moved, because most of their programming is based around weekends because of the soccer and stuff.
Sure.
All their stuff is driven towards the weekend instead of the week. It's just different strategies for a sports network. But we were happy to benefit from that and be able to kind of grow beyond that and now have our own night.
While we're talking about networks, is it true you guys are talking to a couple of different networks about perhaps making something else happen? Yeah,
that's kind of my coming into 21. It was actually, our big goal for 20 was to, kind of grow our TV footprint in the States. And then the pandemic hits and ad dollars go soft, programming schedules go bleak, and there's really those conversations really aren't happening. You're not seeing a lot of these kind of deals happen. So we're going to have to punt to 21. And as soon as the calendar flipped and things were getting a little bit more normal, ad dollars are getting better, things are getting a little bit more stable, there's more of an appetite for new deals. We went right back out there with our agency. So I'm actually right now as we record, this is like my Fightful lunch. This is sandwiched between two Zoom calls with two major networks. I can't name names, so I'll get into trouble, and I don't want to complicate things there. But I'll say that these are what they call Tier 1 networks. There's Tier 1, Tier 2, Tier 3, Tier 4. Tier 1 is the top of the top. So we're very cautiously enthusiastic about this and excited to see where this takes us. And given that the TV landscape just hit the brakes last year, this is, we're glad there's a light at the end of the tunnel. A lot can happen. We'll see where these conversations take us, but taking meetings is our thing right now. And to have the other side of the table or the other side of the screen engaged to the level we're seeing is very important to us. And I'll say BN is a long-term partner. So these talks would expand our footprint, not subtract. But as the only free agent right now in the game when it comes to rights fees and what we can do right now, we're in a really good position, and we're glad to see the network folks are really interested in having those conversations right now.
So would this be to expand Fusion or to add content? How would that work? I mean, you guys have a pretty robust roster as it is.
Right. I would think it would be new programming.
Okay.
It'd be a new offering of programming.
Interesting. I've got so many questions, but I know that you can't. I know that realistically, we'd be talking about a hypothetical deal because the deal would no longer exist if you were to spill those beans.
Streaming exclusively on Fightful now.
Yes, exactly. You mentioned Tom Lawler. I am very excited for Filthy Island as someone who just got out of MMA coverage personally and hired an MMA editor because I was so sick of dealing with that. If we don't see Tom Lawler put together a media hit piece after this, I feel like somebody's dropped the ball. I'm very excited for Filthy Island. Please tell me anything about this.
This is something we started planting the seeds to, I think, last June on our, we did these digital shorts every week called Pulp Fusion to kind of have connective tissue before pre-pandemic, post-pandemic, just keep our guys active out there. And one of the things we started having kind of sprinkling some breadcrumbs around was Filthy Island. And Tom was talking about, the Von Erichs have Hawaii, he's going to have Filthy Island. And of course, right around that time, UFC was doing Fight Island. And what would Tom Lawler's version of this look like? And we really had some fun kind of mapping that out. And by the time it came that we could actually start filming again, those ideas started to become more realistic. And, where will this be? What island will it be? You're just going to have to stay tuned to see. But it's probably not going to be as pretty as Fight Island. Yaz Island is not. It's not going to be Yaz Island, unfortunately. Will it be Staten Island? You'll have to wait and see. No, they'll probably be palm trees. They might be inflatable. I don't know, but no, it'll be a tropical setting, and you'll have to see which island we end up going with. But it's going to be a lot of fun, and again, it's just different weird things to do, tentpole programming, and do fun shows out of the norm. So it just doesn't feel like. When you don't have a crowd, you have to find ways to just shake it up and kind of keep it fresh so it doesn't feel redundant visually.
See, I, like many others, even though I knew it wasn't a realistic thing for the UFC to have a cage on a beach and do fights. I mean, well...
It looks pretty.
They did their best, but I think there were a lot of people that thought this was going to be like Mortal Kombat on the beach or something like that, and it was not that. That's just not realistic.
No. I once exec produced a UFC Fight Pass that we did for a company that was off the strip in Vegas. It was an outdoor show in September, and it was around twilight when we were supposed to start filming. The fights were going to start. And the guys go out there, the athletic commission, just to they check everything. And they're checking the cage, and they look at the canvas, and it's been totally exposed to the desert sunlight for hours.
Yes.
Like if someone put their barefoot on there, their feet will melt. And so they had to run and scramble and inject cold air, these big tunnels, just blowing cold air, and tarp the top for like 45 minutes. They just had to delay with a lot of like a very lengthy preamble on camera for the broadcast team. Just really gave great analysis for a very, very long time until the commission would clear the cage so the fighters could go in there. It would be cool enough. It was just been sitting there absorbing heat all day.
My God. Like, yeah, you never know how those types of things you can prepare for, but it takes like almost like an experience like that to prepare for something like that.
Yeah, I mean, and I've always heard, I remember Bruce Pritchard used to tell the great story about Yokozuna on the Intrepid, and I guess, that was just the same situation. It was just July 4th, and the sun was just absorbing that heat, and poor Yoko had to endure that. Guys would bump and run the hell out of there.
Speaking of preparation, I talked to a bunch of MLW stars when you all did the restart about the tapings, how that went,
right.
And they were really putting over the COVID protocols. Like they were talking about how safe you were keeping people, and quite frankly, we've seen some companies that are not doing that. We've seen some companies that are just like, get your temp check, come on out here. But you guys, it seemed like you all went the extra mile. What all went into that? Because, I mean, I know that's, again, uncharted territory.
Yeah, it really was one of those things where we really took a lot of time really going and doing our due diligence. And there were companies that got it right. There's companies that got it wrong. There's companies that were so-so. And then we talked to entertainment, a few film companies, one out of Canada, to see what their protocols were during this. We spoke with New Japan, who did a great job of their tapings and what their criteria was. And they were very helpful and forthcoming with that. And I hired a COVID compliance officer, which basically took all the responsibility and all the temptation promoter has to look the other way out of my hands and put it in his hands. And he was the boss. So in a sense, if something wasn't right, if someone needed to sit out, that was all on him. He would just notify us. And he had his own staff for testing and doing all the things you need to do, and afterwards giving everyone the appropriate paperwork. They needed it for various reasons. And that really right there just made it easy for us, just having someone that's certified, that knows what they're doing. And it's such a fluid situation where the science was changing, the testing was changing like week to week at a certain point. And it still is crazy in how it's evolving, and new strains are coming out and all this. So when we did this, we had locked in tests, and then all of a sudden college football came in and just took all the tests. Like we were supposed to get them shipped within 10 days out. I'm like, where are our tests going to come from? And our COVID compliance officer had to find a new lab to work with and everything and get the test from. And thankfully, I mean, he was a miracle maker, but he was really on the ball. And you see more and more companies, leagues, sports hiring COVID compliance officers, and it's very helpful. It's really helpful.
Yeah, there were a lot of wrestlers that, even a couple that went out of their way to contact me to say that they were very happy with how that went, because I mean, some of these guys are working independent shows and they didn't necessarily have, and I mean, some independent shows just don't have the funds and they just kind of got to play it by ear. But I mean, there were plenty of people that were at really, really big worldwide national companies, and they were like, they didn't take care of us. MLW did. So, I mean, I think it speaks pretty well to you guys that it didn't take a trial and error for you, or at least for you guys, to realize that we got to take care of these people.
And you are playing, we are playing a little bit of Russian roulette, because we're inheriting whatever happened the week prior to us, whatever decisions were made outside of our realm. And we're hoping for the best, but we want to make sure we have another layer of protection and testing. So when they touch down, they're not even engaging one soul other than the people that are testing them, to make sure, okay, we can get a rapid test done, and then we'll do, further testing. But, that's the problem, guys traveling all over the place, what's going on elsewhere. You're not in control of that. You can't control that. And you don't want to pull those guys from the bookings, because bookings now more than ever are scarce. So you're just kind of like, I'll tell you, we were all very nervous, because if someone gets pulled from a show, all right, how's the booking work? How's the booking algebra work to now subtract that guy and I have to add someone else, and how's that work? It was very stressful, and we got lucky. I think, including production, crew, staff, and talent, it was like 78 people routinely tested, and we were, we tested them vigorously, and we were happy that They came back with negative tests every time. They could have come back positive, and that would have meant the system worked too. But we were just very fortunate that they came back negative, and we were very forward thinking. Even with the production truck, we had plexiglass between each crew member, so the EVS ops had like a kind of like a makeshift telephone booth in between them, kind of. So you try to have what you can in terms of precautions and clean the ring in between matches and all these kind of things. It slows down production, but it was just essential to do it.
We even saw WWE taping mass pieces of content earlier in 2020. When you all do that, and I mean every company's pretty much doing it. Every company outside of WWE right now is taping at least a few weeks at a time. I mean, I don't want you to really reveal if you had any positive tests, but like, do you already have like creative contingency plans in place if like this person tests positive or not? Because I mean, that could affect weeks, if not months of programming for you guys.
Yeah, and you really can't all of a sudden just, like an injury sometimes you can work around it and show a guy he can just lay down and act like he's been attacked or something. Like once you pop a test, it's like you just have to be quarantined. So you don't even have the luxury of a real ride out. So it's, most guys, we would just basically just say, hey, he tested positive, so he's out, and this is the substitute. There's certain, monsters and stuff, like if Mads Kruger tested positive, God forbid, I don't know if we do that. He might just kind of mysteriously go back into the shadows, and Joseph Samael will explain he's training or creating something evil. So I think for the most part, we have it kind of figured out. And you can't really overplan it because there's so many moving parts that if you start to get too specific this far out, you're just going to screw yourself.
So we mentioned the restart. One of the bits of news that came out of that was it was almost like the Abraham Grandpa Simpson meme. Like people were like, "Oh, Cody Hall signed." No, he didn't. He's gone. Can you provide any information on like what happened there, or if that was true?
He did sign. He was briefly with us. He had some stuff going on that he didn't feel he could participate. And so we said, we understand, and we moved on, and we wish him the best. Cody's a guy that we had kind of looked at probably dating as far back as 2018, 2019, when I started to create the kind of what the dynasty would ultimately be. And at one point, he was a member of it in my mind, and we flirted with deals on and off through a 2-year courtship almost. And at the end, I just don't think it was a good fit for either party, and there's no animosity on our end. And we wish him the best with whatever is next in his life, in or outside of wrestling.
Down the line, do you see that as a possibility if maybe you all could ever come to terms that maybe he could pop up again?
There's always a possibility. Like we were talking about at the top of the conversation. There are guys that maybe will work out better here than elsewhere, and there might be guys that work out better elsewhere than here. But I'm always a big believer in second chances. My career in particular, if I hadn't had a second, third, fourth chance, I wouldn't be doing MLW now. So I'm grateful for those that gave me a second chance and a third chance. So I guess never say never.
As we wrap up, a reminder, guys, Kings of Colosseum, January 6th. You can catch it, virtually everywhere. All over the place. I mean, you guys have maximized every platform that you have, and again, a great card. Myron Reed and Leo Rush, Alexander Hammerstone and Mads Kruger, who's really exploded in recent weeks. Jordan Oliver and Simon Gotch. That's one that I'm very excited for after speaking to Jordan Oliver, and a physically transformed Jordan Oliver from what we saw a year ago. He's still a growing boy, Court.
And what I love about Jordan is he asks so many questions, and there are a lot of guys that just they don't want to soak it up. And I think if you ask questions, and I think young generation, and I remember being his age, and you think you figured it all out. So you almost have this boldness that you don't want to open yourself up to that vulnerability of asking, how something works, or someone shoots down an idea, but why? But it's not a defensive why. It's like, I want to learn why. Jordan has such an appetite for knowledge. It's going to make him very dangerous in the game, and that's a good thing. I'm very proud of how he's evolved and developed over the last year or so in the company. He's someone that I think people have yet to see a lot of what he has to offer. He has certain qualities. CM Punk was a little older when he was in MLW, and I don't want to make the comparison because that's a hard comparison to live up to, but there's certain qualities I see that are very similar. And Jordan's going to be his own man. I think he's going to have a real strong run. But he's still filling out, to your point. He's from a mechanical point of view, he's still feeling out things. From a physical point of view, he's still growing, and he's putting on weight. But people don't realize he's deceptively tall. He's like 6'2".
Yes.
And so he's kind of, built initially kind of like a basketball player, a little lanky, and he's going to start to fill out. If you remember how Wyndham was, if you ever saw Barry Wyndham at 18, 19, and then what he looked like by 25, totally different. Jordan's someone special. Keep your eyes on.
Kings of Colosseum, it's on DAZN. It's going to be on Fubo Sports, I believe, Wednesday at 7 and 10. It'll be on YouTube at 7, and then, of course, you can watch it anytime after that. And then BN Sports, Saturday at 10 p.m. Eastern. Kings of Colosseum. Court Bauer, I want to thank you so much. I appreciate you taking the time.
Hey, Sean, thank you so much. I hope it works out for your Louisville boy, Myron Reed. We're going to have to see tonight. It's going to be a big one.
Not a good year for Kentucky sports so far, but considering he's based out of Louisville, we might stand a little bit of a better chance. But I am admittedly a homer. I'm a homer, so sorry, Leo Rush. But guys, until next time, we're out.